We just got the announcement at CES of exactly what to expect from the 50 series lineup and also the exciting new project digits. Today, we're going to take a look at what those items encompass and how they could impact you for your local AI inferencing workloads in your own home, also as well as image generation. As a owner of 4090s, I've got what a lot of people right now have, and that's called "Why Didn't I Sell It?" fever. Over the holiday season, 4090s spiked to insane prices. Let me know in the comments below if that's impacted you. However, I've also got a lot of 3090s. So I've got two 4090s and I've got four 3090s. The four 3090s I don't actually feel like are going to be dramatically different, and I'm going to get into the details of all of that in this video. So make sure you're checking this out and hit like and subscribe. I've also got an accompanying article so you can follow along with a lot more detail, really. We'll kind of run through the website article today also, but we're going to follow along kind of that outline that I've got. We're going to take a look at some notes that I had and look at how they're going to compare to the 40 series and 30 series. And we're also going to see what this means for 40 series card holders and 30 series card holders in my estimation. And we're also going to look at the end at the project digits. And is this the first AI supercomputer? Is this what everybody needs? Project digits is probably one of the hottest little items I've seen in a while. It looks good. $549 all the way up to $1999. That's the 5070 up to the 5090. We're going to get the 5090 and 5080 in January here. And we're also going to get the 5070 Ti and the 5070 in February. The 5090 has really good looking stats, but put everything into a big bag of suspend disbelief for now. And the reason why is because so much of this is marketing, and we're going to pick apart some of that marketing today and take a look at what that impacts you, like if you are using something like Ollama at home to do inference workloads. So the 5090 is going to be unobtainable. Of course, join me. I will be in either Dallas or Houston. I'm not sure which one. At a Micro Center, standing in line, most likely trying to get a 5090 in about 23 days. So I hope you can join me out there. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to be at a Micro Center. Definitely, I think we're also looking at a scenario where you're going to, if you're getting a 5090, a 50 anything, to really max out that performance of the PCIe 5 bus, you're going to need to have a pretty current generation computer. Most people probably do. However, if you're looking at using multiple GPUs for training, for certain types of generation of like video content also, you probably are going to be looking at a much more expensive Epic workstation, one of those more recent 9000 series, or the latest Threadripper Pro. I have one of those latest Threadripper Pros. Very expensive system to get up and running. Even the Epic 9005 series is pretty darn expensive. There's an Intel alternative that does have PCIe 5, I believe, out. As far as a consumer grade, again, you're going to have a limitation which won't impact you for inference, but it would impact you in other realms as far as how many PCIe lanes you get on one of the consumer chips versus, of course, workstations. And you get so many PCIe lanes, you're paying a premium for it. The 5090 comes in a 2-slot edition. That's freaking insane. That 2-slot edition is going to be dynamite. That might be one of the most exciting parts of all of this. That actually, I have a dollar value pegged on it of about $100. And that's just because you pay so much for all of this additional stuff. That's a value add of an additional $100. We also see that we've got quite a bit more VRAM. I put that at a plus 500. So I think we're going to see a 25% uplift as far as the actual performance, generic raster performance. Typical workloads probably going to be in that ballpark. You do use caution here. So one of the articles that I've got embedded here, or tweets that I've got embedded from Mr. Yunshin Jen, is talking about the presentation of these numbers. And I would definitely say, I think the imprecision of how they are presenting some of these numbers and the comparisons that they're drawing are very, very important as far as people that are considering AI workloads. Are you going to get double the performance? This is one of the things that I'm seeing out there, and maybe for some games out there, but you're not going to get a model that is the exact same quality at that size. And this is just because they have a new type of acceleration that's come out with Blackwell. That's FP4 acceleration. And they also have FP8 on a 4090. That was kind of the generational baba that they had there. That allows you to have substantially faster workloads. However, comparing a FP4 on a 5090 with an FP8 on a 4090 is not a great apples to apples comparison. It really is comparing two different qualities that are substantial, and there will be substantial impacts from the selection of which one of those you go with. Some of the marketing here, we'll dig into it more, but man, FP4, running a 200B model, NVIDIA can produce these. NVIDIA produces models already, the Nemotron lineup, and they produce really good ones. But there's a discontinuity in how they communicate things. And so just kind of by its nature, FP4 is going to be actually twice as fast if it's hardware accelerated than what you're going to get out of an FP8. So I feel like there's some of these comparisons. Other people were pointing it out, and I think that's an important one. None of this matters. Let me tell you why none of this matters. We're not going to be able to get these. Nobody's going to be able to get these. I'll probably stand out in a line and see if I can snag one and not get one. And my chances of successfully acquiring one online are 0, along with most other people out there. The reason why is that snipers are good, and that sniper to scalper pipeline is it's well fed, and it is very, very lucrative. So I fully expect, even though the price was announced at $1999, which I did not see for the 5090, I thought it was a $2,500 GPU. I thought it would be priced at $2,500. And the reason why is we've got just that much extra value. Like I said, the additional 32 gigabytes of VRAM, $500. The additional 25% uplift that you get in just performance, probably another $400. Like I mentioned, I value that extra slot. They've got a 2-slot design for the FE in a 5090. Ooh, that's great. I think everybody has to understand and appreciate, if you've tried to cram a bunch of cards into a single machine, you don't want to have to go with risers. You end up having to go with risers, and you can get some of those great risers at the links below. Those Okino's ones are great. I have had very few problems with them. But definitely it is a insertion loss can happen. Did you bump it can happen. Did it wiggle loose can happen. So many things can happen. It's better if you can just plug it directly, of course, into the board itself, especially as you increase the bandwidth and the frequency that you're operating at. It becomes more and more important. Again, I say all this stuff about the 5090, caveat, none of us are going to get them. They're going to be $5,000 is what I'm predicting from scalpers the next day. That's, I hate to say it, that's just the way I think it's going to happen. That's based literally purely on the historical trends that we've seen with the 4090 launch and the 3090 launch. I think it is a $2,500 easily dollar value GPU, and at $1999, if they could supply these in infinite numbers, which they can't, then we would all be very, very happy 5090 owners. The 5080. They're launching the 5090 and the 5080 at the same time. If you're a gamer, yeah, the 5080 makes sense. It's 16 gigabytes of VRAM though. It's going to be a price premium, and there are other 16 gigabyte cards that are going to be better cost economically wise for you to consider, and that is definitely my recommendation. Leave the 5080s for the gamers out there. If you are just purely in this for inference, or if you plan on doing strong amounts of inference, you probably want to go with that bigger amount of VRAM, or the same amount of VRAM in a cheaper card, which is the 5070 Ti. It'll probably be February when people realize and come to terms with the fact that they're not able to get that 5090, and they're going to be looking at the 5070 series. The 5070 Ti is a great card at the price. The 70 series in Ti has typically been pretty good, except for the 3070. I think Ti was 8 gigabytes, a real weird one out there. But if it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which the 5070 Ti will, like the 4070 Ti's have had, then this is a really good card. I would leave alone also the pure 5070 without the Ti. It's got 12 gigabytes of VRAM, just not enough to be meaningful for you. There's a huge generational uplift every other cycle. Maybe it's a TikTok thing like we had with Intel. maybe not. It's really just based around PCIe, and the capabilities of it is what I feel like. So PCIe 3 to PCIe 4 was the ampere uplift, and that really did impact the performance and what you were able to get out of your 30 series cards. 30 series ampere cards, awesome. Were very hard to get at the time when they were out because of GPU mining. But 11 gigabytes being kind of the top end on a 2080 Ti, all the way up to 24 gigabytes on a 3090, whoo, that was awesome. People loved that. And we did not see that in the next uplift, which was ampere to the added generation. We stayed on PCIe 4 also. If there was a time to give you an additional amount of VRAM, it would have been then. But yeah, 24 gigabytes on a 3090, of course 24 gigabytes on a 4090. And unfortunately, they killed NVLink also, which, those things happen, but still, it is notable that the last product launch, probably not quite as hotly anticipated as this one. And most people are out there on a more modern PCIe 5 capable system. Gamers are going to be very interested is what I have a feeling. There's a lot of gamers that maybe even back on 20 series that are going to be definitely selling those off. I expect 20 series to be fairly impacted. Some notes on project digits. I think a lot comes down to numbers we don't have yet, and that really comes down to the bandwidth performance that we will see out of it. It is a LPDDR5X, so that's kind of is it going to be operating at a high speed, or is it going to be operating at like a lower speed is a big question, how they interconnect it. Lazarus had a pretty good comment here on the TinyCorp. TinyCorp manufactures purpose-built boxes that have a bunch of 4090s, and there's an AMD variant also. They're called like green boxes and red boxes, if you don't know. They also have released a really cool driver upgrade. If you have a 4090, it kind of really brings out some additional performance capabilities of a 4090. So that's open source out there also. I'll try to link all of that in that article also. But Lazarus mentioned the whole premise is that they want to keep the RAM, CPU, GPU speeds high as they did with the GH200s. And I fully assume that the goal may be not as fast, but significantly faster than non-unified memory architectures. Otherwise, sure, it doesn't make any sense to get it. Yeah, so trying to keep it as fast as possible is something they're definitely going to want to do. But when you look at the capabilities of this little machine, I really have a lot of questions. So 1 petaflop at int4 is just divide by 2 all the way down. The performance of it does change. Now, definitely NVIDIA has said that in their, I think what really makes up for it is it just looks so damn good. That 128 gigabytes of memory, if they can pull it off at the speeds and the performance capabilities that we saw with the most recent Macs, M4s and stuff, that could be a game changer. That could be huge. But at the same time, if it is significantly slower than that or somewhere in between, which is my guess is that it'll be somewhere in between, then it's going to be kind of slow. The ability to run a 200B model easily in 128 gigabytes, sure, can happen. If you recall on this channel, we've ran a 405B on a single machine, and that was just using system RAM. What is acceptable for tokens per second is something that you have to start thinking about then, because it becomes quite slow. And they do mention being able to network 2 of these dudes, and that is really cool. They give it some really cool stuff also. RDMA, GPU Direct, they've been paying attention to these details. I am very, very excited about that. So I think that we're going to see, this high bandwidth unified memory. It's going to have good speeds. I don't know how good the speeds are, but this thing is either going to be whoa, or it's going to be kind of like that. It's going to give you a different set of capabilities, and I love the fact that they've called it a supercomputer for your home desk. So this is like your little home computer, supercomputer friend. And man, do I want 2 of these. Whew, that looks cool. Who knew that you wanted gold? Could this be why we've heard rumors that Mac may not be doing their unified memory at the same levels they have been, or moving away from that? I've heard rumors. I don't have any knowledge about that, but a gold box just came out to replace a silver box is also a way to look at that in a certain sense, possibly. I think this is also funny. So there's a lot more information on it here, and you need to go through one of their applications to get notified, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what the supply of these is going to look like yet, but at $3,000 a piece, this may not fit everybody's needs. Could fit and take over if that price and that amount of VRAM is, you know, as performant as a Mac offering, could take over that segment very easily. I kind of was like, well, maybe we can see what we can find out about this operating system here. And it is AI slop operating system. So I thought maybe we could get a little bit of insight there, but not really too much. So moving on to the next little part here, there's some great information here. I mean, ooh, are those QSFP 28s? Ooh, two of them would be awesome. Like, what can you do with this little box? It is very small. It is very, very small. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. We're gonna have some pretty cool times. Now, how does the 50 series compare to the 40 series? Specifically the 5070 and 4090 that we heard talked about on raw performance numbers with a more head-to-head comparison. So they said the 4090 is going to have roughly the same performance as a 5070. That's shocking to say. This isn't the first time we've heard shocking things out of these kind of CES launches or, you know, product launches for NVIDIA GPUs though. This is standard, par for the course. This is not new. So when you look at a relative size of a 4090, 5070, you get twice as much RAM. Your bandwidth is 1.5 times as much on a 4090 as it is on a 5070. And your shader units, all of the meaningful units here are 2.67x, which is pretty significant. Now you do, of course, get that ability to have int4 as an option if that's utilized. I've read a lot of things that say that it is a quality impact that's not insignificant. So I'm not sure how useful it is. AI tops is kind of just, let's throw out just meaningless things here. But even then, a 1.34% performance increase between a 4090 and a 5070. The price difference and how that impacts GPUs, like I mentioned, owner of two big, fat, beautiful ROG Strix OC White Unicorn, oh, great GPUs. These have been absolutely a blast to have. But I still like my 3090s better, which is a weird thing to say. And I'm going to get into why here. I think we're looking at a 25% upgrade as far as speed on most things. There is a tremendous RAM bandwidth, VRAM bandwidth increase. I'm not sure how that's going to be useful for tasks that are inference related versus tasks that are, definitely it will be useful for probably image generation, so your Flux dev pipelines. These people are definitely going to want to get a 5090 if they can get one, which good luck. Let me know what you think about the potential scalper situation that's going to occur here. I think it's going to be quite crazy. For a lot of the performance that we're looking at that matters for inference, we could be much closer than if you just look at the DLSS, which is, oh, it's twice as fast. That's where they were coming up with that. I think for video gamers, that's going to make a lot of difference. I think that you can't compare Int4 to, you know, Int8 and have it be meaningful. It's just not the same. So we'll see some good numbers, hopefully, from independent reviewers. I don't know a lot of people that test this out. So if NVIDIA is watching and they want me to test it out, they can send me a card and I'll test it out for them. Definitely, they can send me a couple of those boxes. Oh, those are so good. What does this mean for 30 series cards? What does this mean for 40 series cards? So let's talk a little bit about the price impacts here. This is pretty important. I think you're going to see a big price reduction in the next 23 days until we get to the reality of they're unobtainable. And they're for sure going to be unattainable. And the supply is constrained, I'm sure, on them also. And when we look at a 20 to 35% reduction on 4090s sale prices, unfortunately, this is how bad things have gotten. That just gets us back towards MSRP. There was a time briefly, it was probably about 6 months, and it was about, you know, maybe 13, 14 months ago maybe, that GPUs were, high-end GPUs were insanely cheap. And that was the glut of them being sold off from people who had held out for a while thinking that they were going to be able to continue GPU mining. When the reality hit that that was done, those came flooding on the market in insane numbers, and there were prices that were wild if you had stacked up on them back then. But that was a one-off event, and I'm not sure that we're going to see those kind of numbers for a huge group that's predictable. I do think the 30 series owners who are gamers probably are looking at an upgrade. So we could see some impact on that, specifically in the mid-range cards, which I think a lot of gamers have mid-range 30 series cards still. So I expect the biggest impact to be, unfortunately, between 20 and 35% reduction on used GPUs. And we're going to check the prices of these after I give my predictions, and it's already kind of coming true. That's going to be the biggest impact. The 4080 and the 4070 non-TI are typically not a market for people that are doing AI inference due to the price per gigabyte valuation. And the 4070 Ti 16 gigabyte and the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte, I think these are both very well liked cards. People that have acquired them for prices that have been pretty darn good recently, especially the 4060 Ti in the like 450-ish range. I mean, I've heard everybody say they like their 4060 Ti, and it is still the cheapest route you can go to get into the 16 gigabyte VRAM range. I don't see a huge reduction in 4060 Ti's on used markets. 4070 Ti's might see some price reduction on new markets, however, because there was a lot of stock that is out there. So how much of that comes down the pipeline and at what prices is something to keep an eye out. Next, how does this impact 30 series cards? So I think 30 series cards are going to be impacted, especially the ones for gamers, probably pretty heavily. So I'm going to call that like your 3060 Ti, your 3070, 3070 Ti. I think those are going to definitely be impacted the heaviest. And I think that we're going to see the top end 3090 still not be as volatile as the 4090. I think it's going to come down in price. I'm expecting probably a like 10%-ish reduction to 15%-ish reduction in price for that. And that is still a decent amount. That's why I'm looking on the lookout here. And I've got really custom tailored links to very well-crafted eBay searches. If you want to follow along with this, that is helpful to sort out a bunch of the very sus listings on there. So make sure you do that. Practice a lot of eBay safety, especially sometime right now, like now, where people are maybe FOMOing a little bit in some regards about selling or buying. Then definitely that's a time to know that the people that are out there that would try to take advantage of you are paying attention to that also. And they're trying even harder during that time period, most likely. So I would say that I feel good owning the 3090s that I do, the 43090s. I don't expect a massive inference price difference in them, and it still is a very cheap way. If I was able to go out there and get several of the 5090s, I would totally feel different. But I'm not going to be able to go out there and get the 5090s anywhere close to MSRP. And so that makes me feel pretty secure. Does that mean that I would augment with 4090s in place of the 3090s? Well, you're still looking at a price difference of, in my opinion, about $600 to $700 usually between the two. But we'll see as it progresses through the month. But I think 800 price point is where you're going to see most of the used ones at, and that's down a little bit from where we've been. I think there's singles that'll be showing up, so I'm going to keep my eye out for some more singles, see if I can find some Ventus MSIs, because I really do like those cards. And so next, let's check out what the prices are like right now for 4090s and also for 3090s used on eBay. And the 3090s are looking pretty much like they're in the $800 price range, which, I mean, that's actually pretty decent. I think that they may come down a little bit more, but it depends a lot on the quality of the card that you've got. And so next, let's check out the 4090 used market. And you know, that one is a parts only, so not gonna be functional. Let's keep going here. Another, I think this is a mobile add-on one, so that's not even a full 24 gigabytes. This one here, 1700, so that's a little bit more. It does look like this is a pretty good one here. But yeah, somewhere around 1700 is what it looks like right now. The price of a used 4090 is. So I'm going to be watching that, see if we get closer to that 1400 price range. I'm anticipating that we get closer to maybe 1500. And as I mentioned, you can find the links to those fairly well crafted, probably going to give you some decent results in the description below. What does this mean for all other cards? Well, inference is in the tokenizer of the beholder. I think that's a good thing to say, and it is accurate. Like, I like between 15 and 20 tokens per second as far as what I am consuming. That's just a pleasant rate for me. Some people might be faster, some people are slower, some people don't mind even going down to like 3 or 4 and just asking a question very thoughtfully, crafting it so that they get a more concise response. So that's an option also for people that don't mind going slower. It is very, very viable to do. And what makes an impact to you is up to you. So don't let somebody else tell you what your tokens per second you should be happy getting is. That's actually something that you should pick out yourself. And it's a balance of the value that you get for the VRAM, the wattage efficiency that you get, and if you have that baseline assessment, which everybody should come up with a baseline assessment of, this is how many tokens per second, and these are the typical models that I want to run, and these are the typical things that I am using for them or expecting out of them. Certainly, if you are looking for voice models, going faster is important. So sometimes you actually compromise on quality and go with a small one just for that reason. Or if you don't want to use a lower end card, you can use one of the higher end cards in just a single one and usually get that really fast performance also out of them. That's just a tip that I've noticed out there. So I think we're going to see the 20 series and certainly the Pascal. Those are going to be just continuing to sell off. There's still people probably gaming on the 20 series that'll definitely be trying to sell those off. So there could be some good values in that. Of course, your VRAM tops out at 11 gigabytes for a 2080 Ti. So if you do that for yourself, I think that you'll find that you come out pretty happy with most of your performance that you're at, and you won't be chasing just the latest and greatest. But if you want me to chase the latest and greatest, consider hitting like, subscribe, ring that bell, and you can join as a channel member also. Drop your predictions down below and let me know what you think about especially what we might see for inference performance speed. This is my speculation on what I think is down the pipeline as a result of the 50 series lineup and the digits box. The digits box just looks so cool. I really think that this is more of an impact on Apple than it probably is outside of that ecosystem. And I honestly expect that digits box to be fairly hard to get also. So I have no idea what we would expect as far as how many of those are produced, but probably not something you can go to Best Buy and pick up or Micro Center. But boy, if you could. I like the idea of going to a store and picking up your household supercomputer. And you know what? You should call all your computers supercomputers also, because they are. Everybody have a great rest of your day. I will check you out next time.